So now let's look at the version 1. So now since we'll create different classes for visiting faculty and full-time faculty, but in this version 1 we'll just create the class for full-time faculty and test our class. So now there is no need for this boolean variable, that's why we've commented this out, or we can simply remove this as well. um, and similarly, um, we don't need this constructor as well, so we have created a new constructor which does not have the visiting that boolean attribute. So we have these two different constructors, and well, the rest is the same. So now let's look at the full-time faculty class that we have just created. So this is the class that we have just created and we have just discussed. So assuming, since we have made this relationship is a relationship, so we're just claiming initially that all the attributes, whether it's private or public, they would be inherited, and all would be in fact a part of this class. So no need to define them again, since already they have been defined and they are part of this faculty class. So this is just a claim, so let's see whether a claim is true or not. But we do need this constructor, since in the driver file we have this full-time faculty at instance being created, which takes these 6 arguments, and then the calculate salary and print info is the same. So for this, due to this driver class, we need to define this special constructor, a separate parameterized constructor. So now let's compile and run our class, and let's see what is the behavior of uh, our like what happens. Is our claim correct or not, whether all the private functions have been inherited or not, whether all the attributes, whether private or public, have been inherited or not. So let's just compile and run this, and let's see whether just compiling it will actually make a claim correct or not. So let's just compile it. All right, so there's no error. So at the moment it seems as if all the private and public attribute members, which includes the methods and the attributes, have been inherited, because there was no error, since we have called the two functions calculate salary and print info, so which were actually public methods of the parent class faculty. So we're actually not sure, because these were already public, so, and the inheritance type of inheritance was also public. So we just need to make sure whether the private attributes or the private functions, whether they were inherited or not. So we need to check that. So we'll check that in a while, but we'll check that in a while and in version 2. So but let's just compile this driver file, in which now we have a specialized derived class, and we simply calculate salary for this. But don't forget that we haven't defined calculate salary and print info in full-time faculty. So we have defined that in the parent class over here. So so we have also commented this out, and we have defined this uh, function according to the full-time faculty. We have defined this in the parent class faculty, as if we are calculating salary for the full-time faculty. So we have commented this out, and so this will basically mean that since this is that we want to define it for the full-time faculty, so allowance and bonuses would be added to it. Similarly, print info is also defined. So these both are for public. So they were simply inherited, and full-time faculty, when they were invoked or called using the instance of full-time faculty, there was no error, as we just saw. And when we execute this again, this is printed. So after deducting whatever the salary, there were no bonuses or allowances. So this was the output. So now let's look at version 2 of our example, in which we'll actually see um, in which actually we'll create the visiting faculty class, the second class, and see what changes we actually need to make. All right, so we are just refining our example, and now we have this. All right, so let's compile this code. Um, Static.cpp installs compile all the cpp files in this folder. Version 2, we're talking about the version 2, and voila, there are the errors. Here are the errors. So as expected, our claim was that all the attributes, all the members and member methods as well are supposed to be inherited, but actually this is not happening. The calculate tags which we only defined in the faculty class, this is not working in our visiting faculty class. That's what this error says. Now within this context, it means in the visiting faculty class, this is not working, this calculate tag. So let's look at the visiting faculty class, line number 10. So this call is actually not being identified, and so this turns out that this is the reason for this is that calculate tax was private in our base class faculty. So initially it was commented out, and we actually uncommented it to see what was the problem. So now let's uncomment this, which actually makes this public. So just like this. So now we have made this calculated tags public in our faculty class. So now let's see whether now it would be accessible or not. So this means that private members are actually not being inherited. So this is the first rule that we need to know, and we need to understand that private methods or attributes. Similarly, we can check for attributes as well. So you can check this on your own, but we've checked that private methods are not being inherited. So this is the rule that private methods are not inherited and cannot be inherited by the derived classes. So that's why we have now, let's make it public so that these can be derived. And let's now check now let's check our code, whether this, let's compile our code and see whether this works or not. Let's compile the same code. We have just made one change, that we have made calculate tags in faculty public now. All right, so another error, and let's see what that is. So now since calculate tax is now being inherited in our visiting faculty class, so what's happening is that we were trying to access salary, basic and tax members, which were actually not part of the visiting faculty class. Let's look at over here. Since these are not part of this class, these were actually in the parent class faculty. So this error, and let's look at the line first. So it says that within this context, so this is a file again. So this file, all right, so let's look at the file faculty.h, in which basically salary, basic and tax are private. So this calculate tax, this is a similar problem, that calculate tax was private, so we made that public. But if we try out the same solution, that is, if we make salary, basic and tax, which are defined in faculty, salary, basic and tax. If we make these public, so if we just simply make these public, so this would be a violation of object-oriented principle of data hiding and abstraction. So this is not a good design choice. So let me just undo this. And so this is not the choice. So this should not be our choice, that we make salary, basic and tax public, because attributes should not be private. So now there is a problem, a big problem, that we cannot access the private members, but we still want them to be hidden from the client. And so the solution for this is, if we want our attributes to be accessed by our derived classes, and still we want to make them private and not accessible by the client, then we have another visibility uh, or access modifier, which is called protected. So protected members can be inherited and be accessed by the derived classes. So we'll simply make salary, basic and tax as protected members. And in fact, initially calculate tax was also private, and that meant that we didn't want the client to use calculate tax or be able to call calculate tax directly, and we made that a public private function initially when we only had the faculty class. But now, since we know what protected visibility is or access modifier is, so this calculate tax should also be protected. So protected is basically equivalent to private, but the only difference between private and protected is, one of the differences is that protected members can be accessed by the derived classes, or in other words, they are inherited. All right. So on the contrary, private attributes or private members in general cannot be accessed by the derived classes, or in other words, are not inherited. So this is the solution, and a new keyword is introduced, which is protected. Now let's compile and run our code, and let's see whether this piece of code still works or not. Let's clear our screen. Alright, so let's look at these errors. Alright, so these are just warnings which actually which can be disabled by using this option, but still we should actually make sure that our code is error free as well, and as warning free as well. So this is just saying that the um, the members should be initialized according to their order of declaration. So in the faculty class, since now we have cut pasted our attributes and we have shuffled the order of the declarations over here. So now we actually need to change this the order of declaration in our initialization list. So all right, so let's make this according to the order. Or what we can do is that we can simply, which might not be a good idea, or we can maintain the same order, and we can add section over here. We want salary to be protected, salary and basic to be protected, and then double allowance are again private, allowance and bonus are again private, and this again protected. So just to maintain the order, we can do something like this, but this does not look very nice. But again, so just to save time, we're not changing the order of the constructors, so just being lazy at the moment. So but when you guys actually you guys shouldn't do this. So try to have separate sections, but again, this depends on our programming style. So this actually should not happen. Doesn't look nice that since we have all the private attributes should be ordered together, all the protected should be ordered together. We shouldn't be having these separate sections. But again, I'm just doing it to save time and being lazy.